This is Jamie Cullum on BBC Radio 2, and I'm joined here today by, this is something I often say, but this is truly one of my idols I'm sitting next to right now. As a singer, as a piano player, as a songwriter, I've been watching him play live for many, many years. We've chatted before, but we've never had the chance to chat on the radio. I'm sitting next to Mr. Georgie Fame. Hello.
Finally, hello.
How are you doing?
Good, yeah, nice to be here.
One of the reasons why I've become such a fan of yours over the years is because you've operated in the music industry in such an impressive way, because at the very heart of what you do, you're a great jazz musician, but you've also managed to kind of cross over into the world of pop music. You're kind of part of Britain's consciousness. How did that happen? You are a jazz musician, but you've had pop hits.
Well, I started off, like a lot of my generation, with rock and roll, and also Humphrey Littleton's recording of Bad Penny Blues, that boogie woogie that Johnny Parker played. That had a big influence on a lot of kids of my age. And,
Can you give us a year?
Jerry Lewis, 56, 55.
Yeah.
The first album I ever possessed was a Fats Domino album with all the great hits on it. And I loved Fats Domino, Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, so I didn't play in guitar groups because I was a keyboard player. But it wasn't until I started working with my own band, after we got the sack from Billy Fury, basically, that I took over the leadership of the four-piece band, and we got a job in a club in London, the Flamingo Club, which was essentially a jazz club, but had all-night sessions on weekend, and the place was populated by black American GIs that were stationed in the Air Force in this country, in the US Air Force. And that was their home base in Soho at the weekend. So really it was like playing in a black American club. And we were just exposed to the culture. They brought us all the latest records from the PX. And we were playing opposite great British jazz groups. Tubby Hayes Quartet, Ronnie Ross, all those guys. And we were playing basic rock and roll and a bit of jazz, Louis Prima, and we were getting there. I started to listen to King Pleasure, and we started to sing that kind of stuff. So it was a 3-year education, really. What
did jazz mean to you at that point? Were the jazz musicians these other people that you kind of looked up to in the jazz culture, and you were kind of more interested in rock and roll, or did you always feel like you wanted to?
No, I wanted to learn. I wanted to get into it, and being exposed to it nightly. Particularly all night, on a weekend, on a Friday and a Saturday. The group that we played opposite every Friday all night at the Flamingo for at least a year was the Johnny Birch Quartet. Johnny was a great piano player. Dick Extell-Smith was tenor player. Jack Bruce was playing the string bass, and Ginger Baker was playing the drums. That was the Johnny Birch Quartet. So we heard it, and the GIs were giving us the records. And I heard that wonderful recording by Lambert Hendricks and Ross Singer-Song of Basie, where John Hendricks did the lyrics to the whole of the Count Basie orchestrations and the solos, and they sang the whole arrangements, just 3 voices, and that just...
When did it start? When did you start to feel like you could bring together this hybrid of the two music and actually bring it to the people? Because I mean, one of your biggest hits was something influenced by John Hendricks, wasn't it?
It was. John Hendricks did the first vocal recording of the song Yeah Yeah. And on his original vocal recording, to which he'd written the lyrics to the original melody, which was recorded by Mongo Santamaria. And on John's recording, it was recorded live at the Newport Jazz Festival, and he was accompanied by Coleman Hawkins on tenor saxophone and Clark Terry on trumpet. So it had a great history and relationship, connection with jazz. And me being a student of John Hendricks, I went out and bought his latest album. That song was on it. We started to play it around the clubs.
Were you playing that one at the Flamingo?
Yeah.
Yeah, as early as that, right.
We just upped the tempo. I mean, John's recording was 1963. I bought the record, and we played it through 64 and recorded it in 64. And it was the first #1 of 1965. And it got us out of the Flamingo. And I'll be playing it, I'll be singing it tonight, but what I'm singing tonight is a Tubby Hayes big band arrangement of that song, which I got Tubby Hayes to record for my first tour with Count Basie's band. So it's all kind of connected, really.
Yeah.
And I still dig Fats Domino as much as I did when I was 14 years old.
Well, before we leave the Flamingo, it's one of those times that I've read about so much. I've seen a few pictures, but I want you to describe to me a typical night at the Flamingo Club for you. What time would you arrive? Who would be there? What kind of instruments would be there? How late would it go?
Just describe
it to me.
Well, it was open as an official jazz club in the evenings, but then a man that later became my manager, Rick Gunnell, rented it on weekends, and they opened the doors at midnight until 6 a.m. And so we'd alternate sets with a local jazz quartet or quintet, whatever it happened to be. Sometimes we'd be playing out on an American Air Force base, as far away as like Wethersfield or somewhere, and we'd have to get back to London. And we'd get the Hammond organ, the little one I was playing at the time, the spinet model, but we'd have to carry the gear into the club, which was probably full by then, and the jazz group was playing a set, and they'd help us to carry the gear through the crowd and put it on the stage. Because, you know, they knew that when we started playing, they could dance and they could get closer to the ladies. It was a great place. Jumping with Symphony Sid, we used to play that, and whenever there was a fight, was frequently, there were little fights, nothing too serious. But whenever there was a bit of bother, the club lights would come on, because it was dark. And we'd stop whatever we were playing, and we'd start playing Symphony Sid, until they settled it down, and then the lights went back, and we'd stop, and we'd go back to what we were playing. And that's a kind of typical event.
And what time would you finish?
6 a.m.
6 a.m.
Yeah.
And then what, you go for breakfast?
No, there was nowhere in those days.
Right.
You'd walk home.
Right.
We couldn't get cabs frequently, and we'd walk all the way back down to Earl's Court. There was an egg and bacon, I think, in Earl's Court Road, which was an all-nighter. Well, I remember bumping into Mick Jagger once at about 6 o'clock in the morning in there. So.
I wanted to ask you about that time after the Flamingo. So you've had a hit with Yeah Yeah, and you know, when you had a chart hit, how did you think of yourself at that time? Did you just think of yourself as a kind of musician who'd had a break, or were you already thinking about how you were going to kind of cross-pollinate further with the world of jazz and the world of pop and rock and roll?
I was already doing it, really.
Yeah.
The hit Yeah Yeah gave me the finance to actually finish off the recording with the Harry South Big Band, because I had to finance the whole thing. Nobody wanted to do it, because what do you want to go and sing jazz with a big band for? You know, well, it's part of my education, but I had to pay for it. And
so you always had that clear idea about how to move forward in that world?
Well, it just seemed to me to be a natural process. It was it was part of my musical education, really, and I'm still learning. You know, I mean, the fact that tonight I can sing with this fabulous orchestra with my former bugler conducting.
Guy Barker, that is.
Yeah. It's amazing.
That's a good word for him, actually, bugler. Yeah.
You know, he's one of the most expressive trumpet players around, and we've played together for over 20 years, and now here we are on this wonderful stage with these great musicians, wonderful orchestra and big band, and I'm very proud, really. It's very flattering.
Georgie, thank you so much. Can I now that I've got you right here, can I get you to commit to coming and do a session sometime on the show?
Absolutely.
And then maybe we'll get to sing together.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, I'm afraid we've got that on tape now, so you can't go back on it.
I'll do it.
Have a great show tonight. I'll be watching.
Thank you.